Hail and well met, fellow dungeon masters and others. It's been a while since I've been able to get my act together for a stream. I blame the coronavirus, as does everybody, for everything. As I live in a small apartment in Brooklyn, I used to have time to stream more when I was working at home and had the place mostly to myself. But now that me, my wife, and my daughter are all squeezed in here, the only times I have to stream are late at nights and other odd times when I have the place to myself. And I don't know, it's been weird. It's hard to get the energy going some nights, some days to do stuff. My actual day job has been super busy. That doesn't help either. But we got an Unearthed Arcana last week on Psionics, and Psionics is something that I'm fairly keenly interested in. It's one of those very divisive topics in D&D. But it came out. I had the energy tonight, and everyone kind of went to sleep and left part of the house empty and quiet for me. So I thought, let me use this energy and this time and everything I have to dig into Psionics and see what it has on offer. I think they may have done this before. I'm not sure if they've tackled Psionics. It seems like from the name is they have. I don't recall. I don't necessarily follow every single thing that they've put out. I'm not that in tune with it. So they're saying revisited, so I'm guessing that this is maybe their second, third attempt. I don't know. It's new to me. I can't even remember if I ever played with Psionics. I'm sure I have at one point or another. They always seem kind of cool. The thing that always interested me, and I always thought kind of puzzling as a decision, was to have magic and psionics exist in the same space, because they seem to present almost two different ways of dealing with mystical effects. But they approach generally with D&D as kind of the everything in the kitchen sink. So I'm not surprised that they have the idea to just dump psionics in on top of everything else. I mean, not that you can't have multiple interactions with the mystical, supernatural, right? Even with magic, there are multiple schools. You have divine magic, you have arcane magic, and then you have different flavors of that. So psionics was just kind of this third way, but it always acted very differently than other ones. So you had psi points versus other things. Everything was very different. So it was kind of like you had to learn this kind of niche other system that only really worked for other psionics. So I never felt like it fit particularly well, unless you made a real effort to go down those rabbit holes, which I never did. Groups I played with never did, but that's not to say that it couldn't be rewarding if you did. And so let's just see what they have going on. YouTube is telling me it's not receiving enough data. Okay, I don't know. We'll just have to deal with that. So I apologize if it's choppy. YouTube's telling me it might be choppy. And I'm plugged in too via Ethernet. So from my end, it's about as good a connection as I can get. We'll have to just see how this turns out. So at the top, we get the usual boilerplate that this is playtest material, of course. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is revising something that appeared fairly recently. And I had been doing a couple of these Unearthed Arcanas, and I just kind of fell out of it as I just ran out of time and everything to do it. I would like to, if I can, do these Unearthed Arcanas every month and go through them. But obviously, one of the ones that I missed was at least one version of Psionic Options. So they're saying thanks for some feedback. So hopefully this feedback means we're getting a better version than maybe was originally. I don't know what that was, so I can't compare it. So I'm just going to treat this like it's just a brand new thing. So here are the options they're presenting in these pages. A Psi Knight, which is a revised fighter subclass that was previously called the Psychic Warrior. Soul Knife, which is a rogue subclass. Psionic Soul, which is a sorcerer subclass. That was, I guess, in the earlier version called the Aberrant Mind. We're getting 3 spells with a psionic theme. and 5 feats that confer psionic powers to any character. They say they've abandoned the Psionics Wizard and the following spells: Ego Whip, Id Insinuation, Mental Barrier, Psionic Blast, Psychic Crush, and Thought Shield. Yet many of their effects can be found in this material in this document. Those are interesting because those are definitely callbacks to earlier versions that had those spells. Ego Whip to me is very familiar from reading other psionic stuff from the past. So is Id Insinuation. So I guess on the one hand, as someone, is always, they had kind of mined some nostalgia with that, and they've decided to abandon it. I like the nostalgia, but maybe it's better to go with the one benefit of just going with a new, naming and everything is that it doesn't carry the baggage of that other stuff. You can just start fresh. Then everyone's got a clean slate. And then you can present it as that. Whereas if you give it an old name, people might have expectations of that old name. So maybe it's a positive thing. Now we get a little blurb. What is psionic power? The D&D multiverse is filled with supernatural forces, some of which emanate from the realms of the gods, others permeate the cosmos, and still others arise from the mind. The latter force, the power of the mind, is called psi or psionic power. Creatures such as Mind Flayers and Get the Yankee wield psionic power both to channel the magic of spells and to create other extraordinary phenomena. So there you have it. In a nutshell. Just going to try to... Sorry about that. I'm just clicking in the wrong windows. I am concerned about the stream being poor, but I don't know quite what to do about it. Let's see. Wait, what is this telling me? Okay. I don't know. So sorry again if the quality is poor. Oh, they do give us a little blurb here of Psi and earlier editions of D&D. Different editions of D&D have created different rules for psionic powers, sometimes expressing them in wildly divergent ways. Despite how different the rules have been in each edition, there have been a few consistent elements. 1. Psionic powers arise from the user rather than from an external source. 2. Psionic aptitude can be used to cast spells as well as to create effects beyond the limits of spells. And 3rd, the powers associated with Psi and D&D are like those that appear in other media that feature psionic characters: telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance, and the like. Now we get to their conception of Psi in 5th edition. Psionic creatures and abilities have been in the current edition since its launch in 2014. Monsters and NPCs with psionic powers appear in a number of 5th edition books, including the Monster Manual, Volo's Guide, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's been in different materials. In 2017, we experimented with an unofficial character class, the Mystic, focused on psionic powers. And I was about to say that, hey, I went green, and then YouTube said, no, it's poor again. So, again, I'm not sure what's happening. People are just accessing the internet in my neck of the woods. But, again, apologies if everything is stuttery and bad. In 2017, we experimented with an unofficial character class, the Mystic. I remember that. Focused on psionic powers. Through its features and subclasses, the Mystic allowed you to create a character who echoed the abilities of other classes in the game, but with a psionic twist. As much as many playtesters enjoyed the psionic themes in the Mystic, feedback was also clear that the class encroached on other classes' territory, aka violating niche protection, and that it was often too complex, too powerful, or both. Following that feedback, we've decided to say farewell to the Mystic and explore other ways of giving players psi-themed powers, as we did with the features of the Great Old One Warlock in the Player's Handbook. In 2019 and now in 2020, we're enjoying that exploration, looking into providing options that allow different types of characters to manifest psionic powers. All right, so the first thing, the Mystic, I remember reading that. I mean, I didn't do any videos on that, but I remember reading it, and yeah, it seemed like it could be OP, overpowered, as the kids say. And there are certainly tons of posts on Reddit and elsewhere that will go into detail on what kind of powerful synergies and things that people do with the Mystic, though some people and enjoy it. But it's clear from this that the Mystic will not be leaving the ranks of Unearthed Arcana. If people were hoping that there would be a Mystic fully fleshed out, fully sanctioned class, it looks like that's not happening. So that Mystic idea, they've ditched it. Now they're going for these new options: Psi-Knight, Soul Knife, Psionic Soul, and then the assorted Ephemera. And now the stream is back to excellent. So hopefully this will last. So if the video was and audio was poor before, hopefully it stays excellent. So sorry for that. At least it came at the beginning of the video, and I haven't really gotten into anything. So if it was incomprehensible before, we just went to the introduction, how Psi was in earlier editions, what they're envisioning now, and the fact that they've dumped the Mystic. All right, now they're giving us a little more background. The philosophy of this approach is most akin to the one taken in the first edition of D&D, where psionic powers weren't the domain of any particular class, but were available for characters of different types of experience. This is true. We've crafted the new options in this article that work seamlessly with the D&D you're already playing. And hearing your desire for psionic options to feel like one another in some way, we've woven a common thread through the psionic subclasses and feats. The Psionic Talent Die. We invite you to try out these new options the same way you try out any other subclass, spell, or feat. As always, look forward to hearing what you think. All right, is Psi a form of magic? I'm assuming the answer is no. But there's a little gray box. But really, that I suppose that people who are playing vanilla Forgotten Realms will need to know the answer to that. To me, doesn't really matter. I suppose it matters in terms of whether you feel like something like Dispel Magic would work on Psionics. I guess that's up to you and your game. What do they say? They say, like other forms of supernatural power in D&D, it can be used to create magical phenomena, yet it can create other sorts of phenomena as well. So it is a supernatural power, but it is not magic in the way that obviously magic is magic. So they had mentioned at the start that we were getting a couple of subclasses, so here's the one for the fighter up first, the Psi-Knight. Awake to the psionic power within. A Psi-Knight is a fighter who augments their physical might with psi-infused weapon strikes, telekinetic lashes, and barriers of mental force. Many Githyanki train to become such knights, as do some of the most disciplined high elves. In the world of Athas, renowned gladiators in the arenas of the Sorcerer Kings are often Psi-Knights, and in Eberron, the psionic Kalashtar view membership in this knighthood as a special honor. As a Psi-Knight, you might have honed your psionic abilities through solo discipline, unlocked it under the tutelage of a master, or refined it at an academy dedicated to wielding the mind's power as both weapon and shield. All right. You could choose the third level like any other subclass. The feature is called Psionic Talent. And you harbor a wellspring of psionic power within yourself, an energy that ebbs and flows as you channel it in various ways. This power is represented by your Psionic Talent die, the starting size of which is D6. Okay, so they haven't told us what this die is other than that's the common thread, the common mechanic that's going to run through here, the Psionic die. So whatever it is, it's going to start low. I'm guessing that all of these different things will start as a D6. And having this extra little die here, this D6, what can we do with it? You can use it to create a protective field. When you or another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to roll your psionic talent die, and reduce the damage taken by the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier, minimum of 1, as you create a momentary shield of telekinetic force. Okay, so obviously, did it say anywhere? No, it didn't say, but obviously if they're going to be relating to intelligence, will not be a dump stat if you want to be a Psi-Knight. All right, so protective field, they got to be in 30 feet. If they are, you can roll this die and reduce it. So, I don't know. If you made intelligence your third stat, maybe I don't know what that would end up being, +2. So you got a 3 to 9, I guess, at first level kind of thing. You could take off if you're lucky. Does it say does it say, I guess you just have it. Let's read on and see what happens. How many of these do you have, or is it just, you can just do it? Psi Powered Leap. When you make a high or long jump, you can roll your psionic talent die and extend the distance of the jump up to a number of feet equal to twice the number rolled plus twice your intelligence modifier. Kind of feels like a little one of those Jedi force jumps. And this extra distance costs you only 1 foot of movement. All right, that's cool. I can dig it. Telekinetic strike. You can propel your attacks with telekinetic force. Once on each of your turns, immediately after you deal damage to a target within 30 feet of you with a weapon attack, you can roll your psionic talent die and also deal force damage to the target equal to the number rolled. That's cool. So you can do it once on each of your turns, immediately after you deal damage to a target within 30 feet with a weapon attack. Okay, and it's force damage. Force damage is nice. There's not a lot of creatures that have resistance to force damage, so it's one of those things I could see be intriguing to people, because getting to add some force damage means that you're going to have a good chance of getting that damage through. Whereas if it was fire damage or some other ones, there are a lot of creatures that have invulnerability or some kind of resistance to fire, but I don't know if there's much out there with resistance to force. So, cool beans. All right, changing the die size. If you roll the highest number on your psionic talent die, it decreases by 1 die size after the roll. Ooh, this represents you burning through your psionic energy. For example, if the die is a d6 and you roll a 6, it becomes a d4. If it's a d4 and you roll a 4, it becomes unusable until you finish a long rest. Ooh, I like this. This I like a lot. It's like a usage die, but it works inverted. So in a usage die, it would be, roll the lowest number, you would drop a die. So it's for things, for example, and I've talked about this in other videos, I think, so you could look that up, but it was one of those things that if you used a usage die, let's say, to track arrows, as you fired arrows, you'd roll the die. You might start off with, say, a d12 of arrows, and it would go down to d8, d6, d4, and then if you rolled a certain number, like 1 or 2, I forget exactly, it might be the lowest 2 numbers, or it might be the lowest 1, I don't remember, it would do that same thing. It would drop down and then once you got to d4, if it dropped, you were out of arrows. So this is interesting because it's allowing you to use it as much as you like, but it's got this risk reward, because if you do roll a 6, which you may want to do, obviously, for the maximum effect, but doing that, you know that you've dropped it down, and now you're at a high chance of losing it for the day. So I really like that. I like that a lot. I love these kind of risk reward systems. Hey, do it as much as you want, but the more you do it, the more chances are you're going to run out of luck. Well done, wizards. I could see just stealing this to use in all kinds of stuff. I mean, as people do with usage die as well. It gets used. It's very useful for a lot of things. This is interesting to do it in that reverse way, and it's kind of like you're sort of powering up, right? But if you hit the max power, then it's kind of like you've gone into overdrive, and it burns you out. The candle that burns twice as fast burns twice as bright, Blade Runner. Or actually, he's saying that to the replicant. And he doesn't have a bad British accent, so my apologies. My apologies to everyone for that. But my point stands. Burn twice as bright, but you're going to burn twice as fast. Whenever you finish a long rest, your psionic die resets to its starting size. When you reach certain levels in this class, the starting size of your psionic talent die increases. At 5th level, it's a D8. At 11th level, it's a D10. And at 7th level, it's a D12. Psi replenishment. As a bonus action, you can calm your mind for a moment and restore your psionic talent die to its starting size. You then can't use psionic replenishment again until you finish a long rest. That's cool too. So it means you really get it twice. And it only costs a bonus action. So that's kind of interesting. There's not really a big price tag attached to replenishing your psi die, your psychic talent die. Me being the curmudgeon I am, I wonder if that would have been a short rest thing, right? So once, until your long rest, you can use a short rest to calm your mind and have it be meditation. I might change it to that if I was going to use that, just because again, it's another risk reward thing. Being that it's a bonus action means you can just do it in the middle of combat. Whereas I want you to think about it. I'm down to a D4. Do I try to find somewhere and spend that hour and meditate? Or do I just go in and take my chances? Whereas if I know that I could just use that psi replenishment, I'm just going to run into battle because I know that as just a bonus action, I can just do that. So, and it also just feels, I don't know, I just feel like that it shouldn't be just an instantaneous thing, which as a bonus action, it kind of feels like it's just a instantaneous, boom, you're done. Give me that short rest. But again, I'm a no fun curmudgeon, so take it with a grain of salt. Here we at 7th level, you get Telekinetic Adept. Mastered new ways to use your telekinesis, psionic thrusts. When you deal damage to a target with the telekinetic strike of your psionic talent, you can force the target to make a strength saving throw. Unless the save succeeds, you can knock the target prone or move it up to 10 feet in any direction horizontally. All right, so you can't toss them 10 feet in the air, but any direction. Man, that's really interesting. That could be, I mean, you could think of some cool things if you had somebody kind of ahead of the group and you could, almost like you could grab somebody and then throw them 10 feet behind you where the rest of the party can just womp on them. But it's, it is only 10 feet, so it's not that much. But I think the fact they said any direction, not just anything in front of you, really you could look at different parts of the terrain, kind of what's around you, and you could see kind of all kinds of intriguing things if the environment allows. Telekinetic movement. If your psionic die is available, talent die. I keep wanting to just say psi die or psionic die. I don't know why they just don't do that instead of psionic talent die, but it is what it is. If it's available, you can move an object or a creature with your mind. As an action, you target one loose object, right? And the key is there, loose, because again, I can already see the abuse or the, trying to just use it to do all kinds of stuff. And no, your internal organs are not considered loose. It's large or smaller or one willing creature other than yourself. If you can see the target, okay, well, there you go. Unless you have X-ray vision, you couldn't see internal organs anyway. And it is within 30 feet of you, you can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, if it is a tiny object, you can move it to or from your hand. Either way, you can move or target horizontally, vertically, or both. When you take this action, your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size. So it's pretty powerful, right? Large or smaller creatures. So that's going to be most, everyone in your party pretty much, and then something else. Again, it has to be a loose object, and I would pay very strict attention to that looseness. Because yes, while this is definitely one of those abilities that's all about being clever with it, people will try to ride that loose to just things that are kind of, to me, just too much. Right, but again, no fun curmudgeon. So yeah, that's me. But it's got a lot of intriguing possibilities. One of the things I was kind of hoping that I have to confess was maybe a little bit disappointing when I started reading this, and obviously I'm still just starting reading this, but I don't want everything just to be about combat. I feel like characters are way too centered on what they can do in combat, which puts a lot of pressure on combat in many different ways. And I'm glad that at least there's some of these that, yes, you can use it in combat, and I'm sure there are a lot of great uses in combat, but the telekinetic movement looks like it could be a godsend for being able to come up with clever solutions to non-combat issues. You could have a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad that at least there's something, at least one power like that, and it's not all just terrorizing people's minds and just adding force damage to stuff. Anyway, that's at 7th level. 10th level, you get Psi Enhanced Metabolism. The psionic energy flowing through you has bolstered your mind and body. You have resistance to poison and psychic damage, and you are immune to the poisoned condition. All right, that's cool. Low key but useful. I mean, I guess you could argue, well, you get resistance to psychic damage, and I guess to poison damage. You might think at 10th level, is the poison condition really your main threat there? But, it's low key. call it a little bit of filler maybe, but let's see. You do get at 11th level, you do get an increase to your die. So you do have that at the next level to kind of tide you over. 15th level, you get Bulwark of Force. You can shield yourself and others with telekinetic force. As a bonus action, you can choose creatures, which can include you, that you could see within 30 feet. Up to a number of creatures equal to your intelligence modifier. Each of the chosen creatures is protected by half cover for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. And you can only use it once per long rest, unless you decrease your psychic talent die by 1 to use it again. So you can. That's another thing I like. I really like these risk reward things. You spend that die size. You may not pay for it. I mean, it's a little bit less powerful, right? If you go from a D10 to a D8, you're losing a possible 2 amount of something. But do you spend it to get a thing back and then hope you don't roll an 8 again? Or do you not spend it and wait till your long rest to get it back? I think a lot of powers, I would love a lot of powers to have more of that yin-yang kind of pull to it of, yeah, I can spend it as much as I want, but at some point it's going to run out. And the more I use it, the more chances are they'll run out, but sometimes I need to use it. And how do I judge when I'm going to do that or not? And then you get the randomness of the dice that may allow you to go beyond what you could normally because you're just rolling lucky. You have a D8 psychic talent die, you keep rolling 7s, so you just keep getting to go and go and go. Or you might be unlucky and rolling 8s and then 6s and then 4s, but at the same time, those particular instances, you're kind of lucky because you're getting the max effectiveness. So, good job on that. Telekinetic Master. Your ability to move creatures and objects with your mind is matched by few. If your psionic talent die is available, you can cast a telekinesis spell requiring no components. Your spell casting ability for the spell is intelligence. When you cast a spell, your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size. This is interesting. The wording, right, seems to indicate that you are actually casting a spell. I don't know how I feel about that. Because they could have said you're able to do something that is equivalent to the spell. But this is telling you straight up you are casting the spell. You can cast a spell. Here's your spell casting ability. Done. And the only reason I say that is it may be, I don't know, I'm not even talking about the synergies thing, but this means that it would be subject to something for, I don't know why they would do this, but for instance, counterspell, which seems a little odd because you're really doing telekinesis and it's supposed to be psionics based telekinesis. So why make it an actual spell? Why not just say it has a supernatural effect that's equivalent to telekinesis? I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't happen. I mean, you're 18th level. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I mean, it's your capstone, as they say. And I don't know, as a capstone, it seems a little bit like, you could do it. I guess you can do it as much as you want. Oh, when you cast a spell, your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size. So you can't do as much as you want. You could do it a number of times in a day. I don't know. Doesn't feel that great. I could see, let's see, you get your highest talent. So 17th level, you get to D12 as your talent die. I would probably just stop there then. That doesn't make me want, that Telekinetic Master does not make me want to finish out and grab it. I don't know. Tell me in the comments or whenever you watch this or listen to it if you think I'm all wrong on Telekinetic Master. Let me know why. What level spell is telekinesis anyway? I don't know. Now we get to the rogue subclass called the Soul Knife. Most assassins strike with physical weapons, and many burglars and spies use thieves' tools to infiltrate secure locations, whereas a Soul Knife strikes and infiltrates with the mind, cutting through barriers both physical and psychic. These rogues discover psionic power within themselves and channel it to do their roguish work. They find easy employment as members of thieves' guilds, though they are often mistrusted by rogues who are leery of anyone using strange mind powers to conduct their business, and most governments would be happy to employ a Soul Knife as a spy. In a world Okay, so there you go. Amid the trees of ancient forests on the material plane and in the Feywild, some wood elves walk the path of the soul knife, serving as silent, lethal guardians of their woods. So there you have it. And there might be some Githyankies that take this path, and also an Eberron. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's see. As a soul knife, your psionic abilities might have haunted you since you were a child, only revealing their potential as you experience the stress of adventure. Or you might have sought out a reclusive order of psionic adepts and spent years learning how to manifest your power. All right. So the soul knife main class feature is their psionic talent. Also starts at D6, so same as the fighter, but let's see what kind of things they get. Okay, so they get the psi bolstered knack. When your non-psionic training fails you, you can tap into your psionic power to help. That kind of sounds like a use the force kind of moment. If you fail an ability check using a skill or tool with which you have proficiency, you can roll your psionic talent die and add the number rolled to the check, potentially turning failure into success. All right. Yeah, that's definitely kind of a use the force thing. Interesting, though, because at least at the beginning, it's only a D6, so it won't be useful on every failed roll, just some. Psionic Whispers. You can use your psychic abilities to establish telepathic communication between yourself and others, perfect for quiet infiltration. As an action, you give yourself and at least one other creature the ability to speak telepathically with each other. When you do so, roll your psionic talent die and choose the creatures you can see up to a number of creatures equal to the number rolled. Okay. For 1 hour, the chosen creatures can speak telepathically with you, and you can speak telepathically with them. To send or receive a message, you and the other creatures must be within 1 mile. All right, that's cool. Creature can't use telepathy if it can't speak any languages, and a creature can end the telepathic connection at any time. You and the creature don't need to speak a common language to understand each other. That's nice. It's useful. Again, you could use it in combat, obviously, but this is mostly a non-combat utility power, so I'm happy about that. Okay, it's the same stuff about changing the die size. And you can also do the psi replenishment. Third level, you get Psychic Blades. You can manifest your psionic power as shimmering blades of psychic energy. Okay, when you are about to make a melee or ranged weapon attack against a creature, you can manifest a psychic blade from your free hand and make the attack with that blade. This magic blade is a simple melee weapon with the finesse and thrown properties. It has a normal range of 60 feet and no long range, and on a hit, it deals psychic damage equal to 1d6 plus the ability modifier used for the attack roll. The blade vanishes immediately after it hits or misses the target, and it leaves no mark on its target if it deals damage. Well, that's interesting. So if it doesn't deal damage, it might leave a mark, but if it does, then it doesn't. Here's a little extra. After you attack with the blade, you can make a melee or ranged weapon attack with a second psychic blade as a bonus action on the same turn, provided your other hand is free to create it. That damage die is 1 lower. So if the first one was D6, this one's D4. And I wonder if these will increase as your levels increase. Okay, we'll see. So now we get Soul Blades at 9th level. Psychic Blades are now an expression of your psi-suffused soul. Well, there's a little tongue twister for you. Psi-suffused soul. Seashells, psi-suffused shells at the soul seashore. Now you can do homing strikes. If you make an attack roll with your psychic blades and you miss, you can roll your psionic talent die and add the number rolled to the attack roll. If this causes the attack to hit, your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size regardless of the number rolled. That's interesting. So only if it hits do you lose the die. So it kind of it's one of those nice things where you can presumably trot it out. But I wonder what happens if you roll your highest number. So if you had a d6, you needed to roll a 6 to hit. So you decide, oh, well, I'll just go ahead and use that homing strike. And you roll a 6. Does that drop it to a d4? I suppose I guess what I was really asking, would it drop it twice, right? So, okay, you hit. So this homing strikes drops it down 1, and does then Psionic die drop down to nothing? That'd be an interesting question. Right, because changing the die size indicates that if you roll the highest number, it decreases. And then homing strike says if you hit, it decreases. So if you needed a maximum roll to hit and you get it, then it seems like it would be a double bang bang. And if you're at D6, then you're out. So maybe it's even best using a D4 if you're desperate, because then it doesn't matter. You won't lose 2 die sizes in a go. If this is not how they meant that to do, please tell me. Ooh, psychic teleportation. If your psionic talent die is available, you can hurl your psychic blades to magically transport yourself to another location. As a bonus action, you manifest one of your psychic blades and throw it at an unoccupied space you can see up to a number of feet away equal to 5 times the highest number on your psionic talent die. You then teleport to that space, the blade vanishes, and your psionic talent die decreases by 1 size. Okay, so it's not very far necessarily, but I suppose if you're at D12, that would be 60 feet. Well, that's not bad. I suppose you still have to see it because you got to throw it there. Or did I misread that? Do you have to see it? Well, you got to throw the blade there. I could use a little bit more because you see that, not that this is a problem, because again, it's one of those things. This could be clever, and I'm all about clever, which is good. But if we think about it, it's a magic blade. Can you give it an arc? So, for example, if I was at a wall and I needed to get over on the roof, could I chuck my magic blade and it kind of just like a grappling hook, so to speak, and have it just kind of sail over the top of the wall and down, and then I could teleport there if it was in the 60 feet? Or is it supposed to be using it just sort of as a straight on throw? I mean, it's magic, so I don't know. Does it have that weight to it? Could I throw it on an arc to get over stuff, or would it just go straight out into space until it vanishes after 60 feet? Questions I would have to ask my GM if I was debating playing that and they allowed it. Psionic Veil, 13th level. You could weave a veil of psychic static to mask yourself. As an action, you can magically become invisible along with anything you are wearing or carrying for 10 minutes or until you dismiss this effect. This invisibility ends if you deal damage to a creature or if you force a creature to make a saving throw. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you decrease your psionic talent die by 1 die size to use this feature again. Okay, so this one's interesting because if we look at telekinesis and how they worded that one as to literally being casting a spell, this one is not saying you are literally casting the spell invisibility, or greater invisibility, or anything like that. However, it is saying you are magically becoming invisible. So my assumption then is that something like either detect magic or dispel magic would work on this effect. It is a magic effect, but you're not casting the spell, so I would guess that something like counterspell would not work, but those would work. It's interesting, the nuances about how you describe these, right? Really gives you ideas from the player, from the GM, about how these might work, how they're supposed to work. Rend Mind, which is the 17th level Soul Knife feature. This is their capstone. You could sweep your psychic blades directly through a creature's mind. Ooh, it's evocative. I like that. When you use your psychic blades to deal sneak attack damage to a creature, you could force that target to make a wisdom saving throw. Let's see. Unless the saving succeeds, the target is stunned until the end of your next turn. The end of your next turn. All right, that's nice too. Once you use this feature, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest unless you drop down your psionic talent die. All right, that's kind of cool. Stunning things is always good, and the DC uses Dex, so it's +8 plus your proficiency bonus plus Dex, so it fits much more into the rogue's wheelhouse than, say, using intelligence for the fighter. That fighter subclasses was. So that's generally going to be a pretty high, right? 17 level. You're going to have things kind of maxed out. It's going to be a pretty high save. So there's a good chance you're going to get something, or at least force them to use a legendary resistance or something to not get stunned. Okay, so here we go. Psionic Soul. This is the sorcerer. One day a light blazed forth within you, the illumination of psionic power. Your mind now simmers with this power, the full extent of which you won't fully grasp for years to come. You can touch other minds with it and alter the world around you by using it to control the magical energy of the multiverse. Will this power shine from you as a hopeful beacon to others? Or will you be a source of terror to those who feel the stab of your mind and witness the strange manifestations of your might? All right, and then they go ahead and say, yeah, get the Yankee, and yeah, that the usual suspects will potentially become psionic soul sorcerers. Another little tongue twister there for you. All right, here they have a little table. You can check out your origins. I kind of wish that was just a general thing, right, for all of these classes, your psionic origins, but maybe they feel like it's really mostly important for sorcerer. So they're giving us 10 choices. Here are the first 6. You were exposed to the far realm's warping influence. A psychic wind from the astral plane. You or an ancestor was trained by a Githzerai monk. A spirit haunts your mind. You were touched by the Feywild. Let's see. You got it from a near fatal injury. It's an implant from a mind flayer. That's an interesting one. Let's see. What you thought to be an imaginary friend gifted it to you. You got it from your nightmares. You lived near the lair of a sapphire dragon and apparently got some psychic overflow from the psionic dragon. Here we go. Their initial psionic talents. Psionic discovery. You can unlock the ability to cast a mind-oriented sorcerer spell you don't already know. Do we know what a mind-oriented sorcerer spell is? After meditating for 10 minutes, which can be done during a rest, roll your psionic talent die and choose a sorcerer spell of a level for which you have spell slots, and that is in the School of Divination or Enchantment. Okay. So those are what they're considering mind-oriented. Oh, excuse me. A little yawn there. Apologies. You know the chosen spell for a number of hours equal to the number you rolled. All right, so that could be really good or really short. Psychic sorcery. When you cast a spell, you can use your mind to form it rather than relying on words, gestures, and materials. To do so, roll your psionic talent die. The spell then requires no verbal component. That's handy. If you roll the level of the spell or higher, the spell doesn't require somatic or material components either. All right. That's nice. Useful. Telepathic speech. You can form a telepathic connection between your mind and the mind of another. As a bonus action, choose one creature you can see and roll your psionic talent die. For a number of hours equal to the number you rolled, you and the chosen creature can speak telepathically with each other while the two of you are within a number of miles of each other equal to the number you rolled. So that seems a little bit better than the rogue version. I think the Rogue one you had to be, it was out to a mile, but not more. This one extends the range. So again, we have changing the die size, and then you can replenish the die. Okay, at 6th level, we get Psychic Strike. You have learned to channel additional psychic energy into your spells immediately after you deal damage to a creature with a sorcerer's spell for which you expend a spell slot. You can roll your psionic talent die and also deal psychic damage to that creature equal to the number. Okay, he rolled. You can deal this extra damage only once per turn. All right, that's cool. Mind over body. You can now use the psi that flows through you to give your body extraordinary abilities. As a bonus action, you can roll your psionic talent die and spend 1 or more sorcery points to magically transform yourself for a number of hours equal to the number rolled. So what are you transforming yourself into? Until the transformation ends, you gain 1 of the following benefits of your choice for each sorcery point you spend, choosing a different benefit for each point. All right. A little unwieldy, but let's see what they got. You can see any invisible creature within 60 feet, providing it isn't behind total cover. Handy, kind of niche, but handy. You gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover. Take that, flying, hating GMs. You gain a swimming speed equal to twice your walking speed, and you can breathe underwater. Handy, but also kind of niche. Your body, along with any equipment you are wearing or carrying, becomes pliable. You can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch without squeezing, and you can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from non-magical restraints or being grappled. So a little bit niche, but super handy depending on circumstances. That's kind of cool. And again, I like that some of these are, most of all of those are really non-combat stuff. Just give you a lot of utility. What level was that? I missed that. Okay, that was 14th level. So it's kind of a high level. Then we get the Psychic Aura, which is their capstone at 18th level. I haven't been terribly impressed by these capstones yet. Let's see if they change my mind. Your psionic talent die is available. If your psionic talent die is available, you can unleash your psionic power in a crackling aura of psychic energy. As a bonus action, you can magically radiate this transparent 30-foot radius aura for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated or lose the use of your psionic talent die. So basically, 10 rounds of combat or until you drop or you run out of psychic juice. And what does this aura do? Whenever a creature starts its turn in the aura or moves into it for the first time on a turn, you can roll your psionic talent die and deal psychic damage to the creature equaling the number rolled plus your charisma modifier. If the creature takes any of this damage, its speed is halved until the start of its next turn. All right, that's pretty cool. You get this big aura, things come in, you got to roll your dice. Now, again, assuming, as I assume it does, that each time you roll that die, you are subject to reducing the die size. Is this something that could be a double-edged sword because if a bunch of creatures run in and you do a lot of max damage to them, you could just drop your psychic die to nothing fairly quickly. So it's something you got to be kind of careful about. But it seems kind of cool. I don't know. It's still like 18th level. Is that capstone worth it? I don't know. I'd have to compare it to others. But it's kind of cool. All right, we get some new spells. So that was it for classes. On to new spells. Intellect Fortress, 4th level. Up to an hour. It's a concentration spell. You or one willing creature you can see within a range has resistance to psychic damage as well as advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. So that's handy. And if you use a higher spell slot, you could target another creature. Okay. That's handy, right? Intellect Fortress, I think that is a callback to one of the psychic defenses. Somebody who's more familiar with the terms can refresh my memory if I'm off on that. But it sounds familiar. Mind Sliver. You drive a disorienting spike of psychic energy into the mind of one creature you can see within range. The target must make an intelligence saving throw. If they don't succeed, they take 1d6 psychic damage, and the first time it makes a saving throw before the end of your next turn. It must roll a d4 and subtract that number from the save. Okay. So that was just a cantrip. So that's kind of nice. That's a pretty good cantrip. I guess I'm not one to know all the ins and outs of which cantrips are cool, but I like that you're going to take some damage. Granted, it's not a ton of damage, but it's still a d6. And then you get that penalty on the next save. So, I can see some synergies there with, I'm going to cast Mind Sliver, and then you do this other thing, which has a save, because then we can kind of try to double team it. So there's some good ways to get some teamwork going with that. And it bumps up in damage as you go up levels. Mind Thrust. As the spell suggests, you're doing some thrusting here. You are thrusting a lance of psychic disruption into the mind of one creature you can see within the range. And the range here is 90 feet, so that's pretty good. It must make an intelligence saving throw. If it fails, it takes 3d6 psychic damage, and it can't take a reaction until the end of its next turn. That's pretty good, especially if you time it right. Moreover, on its next turn, it must choose whether it gets a move, an action, or a bonus action. It gets only one of the three. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage and stuff suffers none of the spell's other effects. Okay. Second level, I don't know. That sounds pretty cool. I like that it's I forget there's a status effect that's basically, it's not stunned. Something else where it makes you do that same thing where you have to choose only one type of action to do instead of all. So that's kind of cool. It's definitely useful for tying a creature down. 3d6 psychic damage seems reasonable. And that damage will go up after a bit. Okay, that's it for spells. Get some new feats. Metabolic control. All right, so you have to either have psionic talent or wild talent to take this. You refine psionic control over your body's functions. You gain the following benefits. You increase your strength, dex, or constitution by 1 to a max of 20. So that makes it pretty tempting just on that, because you're going to get 1 in there, and then you're going to get more. If your psionic talent die is available, you take an action to channel your psionic power to nourish yourself for the next 24 hours, as if you consumed sufficient food and water for a day. When you take this action, your psionic talent die, decreases by 1 die size. So this is one of those interesting ones, because I could see some people, I already saw someone on Facebook who was annoyed about people gaming long rests by casting spells right before the long rest. I didn't quite get what they were talking about, because the spells they cast would expire. Spells that they were complaining that players could kind of cast for free because they would get the slots back, also expired before the long rest was over. If that kind of thing bothered him, then I don't know what they would do with this one, because if you could wait and eat before your long rest, you could basically get that for free every day. Also a bit of a blow to your hardcore wilderness travel parties, because this guy can feed himself, or this lady can feed herself. So maybe that way also it's a bit niche, because so many people seem to hand wave food these days that maybe it doesn't even matter that much, but it is what it is. But we're not done. If your psionic talent die is available, you can meditate for 1 minute, at the end of which you gain the benefits of finishing a short rest, and your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size. You can't meditate in this way again until you finish a long rest. So then once a day, you can take a short rest in a minute. That's also pretty darn handy. Once per day. So, yeah, the food one is kind of niche, but right, you're getting 3 things, and 2 of those 3 are pretty darn useful. Because if you can take a short rest in a minute, that means you can be on watch or doing whatever while other people are short resting. Or you can just do stuff or whatever. That seems like it's kind of low-key, pretty handy. And obviously you get to bump up a stat by 1, and that doesn't stink. So that's a pretty good feat in my book. I'm not someone who monitors all these and has some internal database where I've ranked them all, but that seems intriguing. Here's another one, telekinetic. Still, you have to have psionic talent or wild talent. You learn to move things with your mind. You gain the following benefits. This one is you get to bump up a Mental stats, so intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1 to a max of 20. And you learn the Mage Hand cantrip. Boy, people love Mage Hand, and here it is. You can take a feat and get Mage Hand and get a +1 to one of those scores. That seems like a win without even knowing what the third one is. And you don't need verbal or somatic components. And you could make the hand invisible. If you happen to know the spell already, they throw you a bone and increase the range by 30 feet. Its spell casting ability is the ability increased by this feat. Oh, that's also nice. So if you're strong in one of those and you make that one stronger, then that is your spell casting ability for Mage Hand. That's gonna. I think a lot of people, because I mean, Mage Hand's one of those low key kind of cool spells that a lot of people. Whoops. I moved pages by accident. That a lot of people will try to game and have fun with, and rightly so. It's useful, and now you can get it as a feat. You can do it. You can make it invisible. You don't need the verbal or somatic components. You can basically do it, stealthily. That's gonna be tempting to a lot of folks, I think. Let me know if you think so or not. Telepathic. Prerequisite, all right, same thing. You need to have psionic talent or wild talent. Awaken the ability to mentally connect with others. Gain the following benefits. So this is another one. You can increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1. You can speak telepathically to any creature you can see within 30 feet. Your telepathic utterances are in a language you know, and the creature understands you only if it knows that language. Okay, so it's not quite as useful as the other telepathic conversation or telepathic communication skills or abilities, because those worked in any language. This one is you have to be talking the same language. Your communication doesn't give the creature the ability to respond to you. Okay, so you're kind of talking in their mind. It's a one-way. Why did I do that again? It's a one-way conversation. What did I do? I'm hitting the wrong buttons and this thing is jumping around. Okay, I'm back. All right. So it's kind of a one-way. It's one-way telepathic talking. That's okay. I don't know if I like it as much as the other ones. Now let's see what this third ability is. If your psionic talent die is available, you can cast a Detect Thoughts spell requiring no components. When you start casting the spell, your psionic talent die decreases by 1 die size. Like the other one, your spell casting ability for that is the ability used that you bumped up by 1 point. I don't know. I don't know if I like it as much as the others, but I guess it has its uses. Now we get to the Tower of Iron Will. Same prerequisites. Your mind's defenses are formidable. After you or another creature you can see within 30 feet of you fails a saving throw, you can use your reaction to roll your psionic talent die and add the number rolled to the saving throw, potentially causing it to succeed. All right. Well, there you have that. Now here we have wild talent. Wild talent. You awaken to your psionic potential, which enhances your mind or body. Increase 1 ability score of your choice by 1, max of 20 as usual, to represent this enhancement. You also harbor a wellspring of psionic power within yourself, an energy that ebbs and flows as you channel it in various ways. This power is represented by your psionic talent die. The starting die size is D6. And you can use this die in the following ways. You can psi boosted ability. When you make an ability check with the ability increased by this feat, you can roll your psionic talent die and add the number rolled to the check. You can choose to do so before or after rolling the d20, so that's handy, but before you know whether it succeeded or failed. So you get to roll, and you get to choose whether to add it or not. So there's no reason to add it before. You really just want to look at it, and if you have a sense of how much you needed, roll the die. Psi Guided Strike. Once on each of your turns, when you hit with an attack roll that uses the ability increased by this feat, you can roll your psionic talent die after you make the damage roll, and then replace one of the damage dice with the number rolled on the psionic talent die. That's kind of an interesting one, right? Excuse me again. All right. So that kind of means if you're going to use Psi-Guided Strike, if you tend to use that, then there are certain abilities that don't match. I mean, I guess the only one is really Constitution. Are there any attacks that use Constitution? So don't use it on Constitution. Everything else, I think, has attack rolls associated with it, right? Or am I missing something? Or would those be spells and things aren't, right? Because Dex you'd be covered, Strength you'd be covered. Maybe Wisdom and Intelligence, maybe not. I don't know. Because it says attack roll. It didn't say weapon attack. It didn't say whatever. So anything that's phrase and attack roll is fair game for a Psi-Guided Strike. But I guess that's something where you'd have to do the research and look at it to see kind of what the scope of that means. What things are covered by attack. Something that they call an attack roll and what's not. So potentially good or not so great depending on what ability you bump up, what attribute you use this on, and then B, how much latitude you get on attack rolls. And then that same thing about changing the die size and psi replenishment. And that is the ball game. So what do we have ultimately with this? So we get a few different subclasses. I'm not sure which one I liked the best out of those, just looking at it at first glance. Maybe the Soul Knife? I don't know. The Cyanite, it seems like they kind of have some Jedi sort of tricks that they give you, but they spread them out between the different classes. I'm not sure. I mean, they kind of all have things I liked, but then they also have the Psychic Blades are cool, and then they kind of give you some other things to do with them, but I don't know. At the same time, it feels like that's kind of all you get. I like a little verisimilitude in some of these. Maybe the Sorcerer, because they actually give you some origins, which are kind of fun to play with. Though you could, I mean, I don't know why you can't apply that to everything. Why not just have a global origins, psionic origins table, and not just, and I don't know why it's just for sorcerers. I don't know. So maybe I like the Sorcerer best. I don't know. I'd be curious for people who have, obviously this has been out, a little bit over a week. So I don't know if anyone's really had a chance to plug it into a game and do a one-shot. I don't think any Adventures League stuff allows Unearthed Arcana, so I guess I'll have to look and see what the feedback is on home games. They're interesting. I like the idea somewhat. I still, again, I feel like they kind of go, I don't know, back and forth on how much of magic. Some parts it's kind of like, oh, it's making you sort of magical effects, but then other times you literally are just casting a spell, and the spell happens to do something that's kind of psionic flavored. So, that's interesting. It's an interesting approach. I do like the fact that it's not inventing all new mechanics to use other than the psi die, but I really like the psi die. I think that's probably my big takeaway. What do I like best? I like that psi talent die. And I would look at other things of what other things could I use that die to represent, because it's kind of a cool way of doing essentially a usage die, just flipping it from decreasing on low numbers rolled to high numbers rolled. So that's all good. I like that a lot. It's probably my favorite thing. The rest of the stuff, I mean, it's interesting. And I definitely will be following this to see if people take to this better. I know a lot of people, just because I think there was a lot of, let's face it, there's a lot of sort of min-max optimization stuff with the Mystic that I think caught people's attention, as those things are wont to do. But there's also the backlash that's associated with that, because the more that the min-maxers grab a hold of it and look at how they can stretch that to do all kinds of crazy stuff, then you have the people that go, whoa, we do not want all that stretching, all that blurring of the lines happening. I'm not having that in my game. So these, I'm not seeing some super powerful synergies yet, but I'm not that guy. I'm not someone who look at these and just can analyze it in terms of that unless it was something really obvious. I'm not going to see it. So I will be interested to see, looking online, different forums and whatnot, if people embrace this, if there is something that's kind of crazy broken, or is it just kind of interesting? Because these are interesting choices that they seem, but not vastly different than the other subclasses. Just a little bit of a different flavoring, a little bit of a different thing. Again, I really like that die, and it does change the way you might use your powers. I mean, maybe that's probably the other thing that the die does for you is I like the fact that it's a risk reward. I like the fact that it changes the way that you get them. I like the holiday of replenishing them, though I don't like it as a bonus action. I would tie it to a short rest, I think, myself. But obviously, I'd be probably willing to at least test it and see how it goes. But I really like that way of making powers. And so you get the kind of, you get the randomness, you get this sort of where you kind of plan your own risk that you want to take and then do that as opposed to tracking points and things. So I think that's a good way. And I would look at, could you do that with other things? Could you take the same thing and do it with spells or do it with other powers? Because it's such a neat, kind of like advantage, disadvantage. It's so, whatever weaknesses in the system is, it's just so clean, right? And you can explain to anybody just because, hey, roll these 2 dice, take the higher if you have advantage, take the lower if you have disadvantage. It's so easy. Same thing with this die. Hey, you're going to roll this die. If it rolls a max die, then we're going to take that die and give you a lower one. And anybody who's seen a bunch of dice lying around knows that you're going to go, D12, D10, D8, D6, D4. And what happens if you get below D4? Do we have a smaller die than D4? No. So you're done until you take that long rest or use that replenishment. So in that way, it's really simple. And I kind of wonder about, what else could you do with that? What other classes? And I know there's a few of them out there who have different kind of points, like key points or spell points, or some of the fighters I think have points, right? Could we take something like all those systems and instead of tracking points, you're using a similar thing with the die size? And again, I also like that, unlike the usage die, which is you roll low numbers, and then you roll down the tree of dice sizes. In this case, it's that high die. It's like you're pushing yourself too far, and then that weakens you. And I like that because it's kind of that, I need to roll a 6, but if I roll a 6, now I'm going to be down to a D4, and then I'm really close to just being out of juice until I rest. So I like that. I like that very much. That's my favorite part of it by a fair margin, just because I really look at the possibilities of that. But this looks pretty good. So let me know what you think. If you, again, if you watch or listen to this later on, let me know in the comments if which one of these classes intrigues you the most, if any of them do. If you look at it and you think this is baloney, I hate it, let me know. If there's something you see that's interesting, if you're excited by that psionic talent die like I am, let me know. And hey, if you enjoy these videos, please feel free to subscribe if you don't already. I appreciate subscribers. I appreciate all the support. There are links to Patreon and Ko-Fi if you'd like to help me out that way. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. But listen, everyone, we're still in this coronavirus world, so stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm going to bid you farewell. It is a late night for me, but have a great night, and I will talk to you later. Ciao.